There's a lot of talk about smart grid, but there hasn't been a lot of actual deployment of it, so it's new territory.
Just what is smart grid technology? In tonight's Chicago Matters story, Rich Samuels tells us how it could reduce the need for new power plants. The author of... Thanks for joining us. Here's what's happening. First, the federal government is on the verge of awarding close to $5 billion in stimulus funds for so-called smart grid pilot projects. Commonwealth Edison and Chicago's Building Owners and Managers Association are among the applicants with their eyes on at least a part of this prize. But just what is smart grid technology? Can it save the consumer money? Can it reduce the need for new, possibly polluting power plants? Rich Samuels gives us some answers in tonight's edition of Chicago Matters Beyond Burnham.
In the loop, BOMA, the Building Owners and Managers Association, wants to reduce the demand for electricity in close to 300 office buildings, the equivalent, it claims, of building a new pollution-free green generator.
As our need for energy and electricity grows, without addressing the demand side of that equation, we're looking at the installation and construction of new generating facilities. Those are often difficult to do, expensive, sometimes polluting facilities. Anything that we can do to reduce the demand for that energy is equivalent to the construction of new generating capability. And that's why we're referring to our program as a virtual green generator.
BOMA intends to create its virtual green generator by implementing so-called smart grid technology, a term that means different things to different people.
To us, it means the installation of both technology and system programming that enables electricity users and suppliers to respond to events both in the wholesale marketplace for electricity as well as conditions on the distribution and transmission grids.
The transmission and distribution grids are usually thought of as the networks of wires that connect generating stations to consumers. But smart grid technology supplements the power networks with data networks that show changes in demand for power, even the changing prices utilities are charging for power. Traditional meters show only power consumption at the present moment and in the recent past. Smart grid technology demands a new kind of smart meter.
This is a sophisticated smart meter. Doesn't look that much different outside of the digital display.
Part of the secret of a smart meter is not only the multiplicity of the data it collects, but the speed at which it updates it.
Conventional wisdom is that it's hourly data. For BOMA Chicago, we interpret real time in 4-second intervals.
Monitoring the rapidly changing data from the grid and from its member buildings at a central control point, BOMA can reduce power consumption whenever possible.
Nobody's talking about turning off air conditioning on a hot summer day, but we are talking about maybe dialing it down a little bit, extinguishing non-essential lighting perhaps in lobbies, operational elements like that that could go unnoticed or result in very little tenant disruption. In order to do that, though, you need to have granular control over the systems within the building. And I explain it as the difference between a light switch that's just off and on and a light switch that has a dimmer. You can make very subtle adjustments in your consumption in the light level that may even go unnoticed by the occupant of the room, and yet you're able to shave electricity load or move it to a time of the day when it's not noticeable to the tenants.
For its central city buildings, BOMA anticipates the consumption reduction will mean cost savings.
We think we can shave 20% off the peak load of these buildings through this concerted effort. That's about 200 megawatts of demand.
Meanwhile, Commonwealth Edison is engaged in a three-pronged implementation of smart grid technology for its residential customers.
The first piece we call distribution automation, and these are devices that go on our system of wires and poles that will isolate faults on our line or reroute power when we do have a fault and instantly bring at least a portion of our customers back to power. The second piece is the meters. Operationally, they allow us to remotely read the meter, which creates some efficiencies in our business. The other part of what these meters do is they provide customers with information that they have never seen before in this industry. We're probably the only industry that sells a product where customers don't know what they paid for something, how much they used, until they get their bill at the end of the month and it's too late to do anything about it. The third piece is what we call the home application or customer application technology. And these are display units that will give customers information on how much power they're using, what the cost of power is, predict what their bill will look like at the end of the month if they continue at this level of usage, and also provide an opportunity to do something about their usage, program their thermostats to raise or lower under certain conditions, and so give them more control.
Back downtown, BOMA anticipates additional revenues by being able to instantaneously cut consumption through a transaction called demand response.
So it's a hot August afternoon in Chicago. A signal goes out from the wholesale markets. We'd like you to shave some demand if you can. If the buildings are able to respond, they get paid for doing that. They essentially get paid the spot market price for electricity when that event occurs.
In effect, reducing consumption downtown puts power back in the grid, but in a green way.
This doesn't require the construction of new generating or transmission facilities. A lot of this can be done simply by reducing, shaving, or rescheduling load, and that's something that commercial customers, like our commercial office buildings, are uniquely positioned to do.
Commonwealth Edison presently offers its residential customers no similar option, but it's installing some 140,000 smart meters in selected locations as part of a pilot project to determine how smart grid technology can be marketed to the folks at home.
I think we are stepping into the unknown a bit. There's a lot of talk about smart grid, but there hasn't been a lot of actual deployment of it, so it's new territory.
But territory that will most likely be familiar to all of us before long. For Chicago Tonight, this is Rich Samuels.
As always, we welcome your feedback on our Chicago Matters series, Beyond Burnham. Just go to our website, WTTW.com/Chicago Tonight.